Well, hello, Young and the Restless Daily Recap fans. Today's daily recap is from Monday, December the 2nd through Friday, December the 6th, 2024. Nothing happened this week, y'all. I mean, come on now. That's all they got. Let me run through the boringness, okay? Phyllis meets Summer at the coffee house and really she was hoping to see Sharon, which Sharon eventually did come in, and Phyllis acted completely like Phyllis, just off the chain, ridiculous, right? And if you would have seen the expression on Sharon's face, it was some kind of bizarre, like I barely hear what you're saying, but I know Phyllis, and I'm sorry, Phyllis. Oh, it was crazy to watch. And Phyllis is looking at her like, what is all this? This is a part of your plan. You're trying to play crazy. I don't know what you're talking about, Phyllis. Oh my goodness. And Summer was kind of like, Mom, you know what? Let's just go. Because, this is really not what we came here for. And I am not leaving. Phyllis was just being uh, a shameful Phyllis, right? And then Michael comes in and oh, she reads him up one side and down the other. Actually, when Michael came in after Phyllis told him off, that's what she goes, you know what? You're right. I'm getting out of here. I don't want to be in the room with this traitor. Oh, so that's what caused her to leave is Michael. So Michael tells Sharon, I'm sorry, that you had to, endure this from Phyllis. And Sharon is like, now, guess what, y'all? Get a little teary eyed. I deserve it. I deserve whatever Phyllis has to throw at me. And I said, look at there. When it was just Phyllis and Summer, Sharon was all like you just talking to the crazy hand. Michael, I can expect this. Oh, and I was like, look at here. I don't know what to make of this. So, um, Jack, and Diane, they talked to Kyle. Kyle's pissed, but he's coming around. Diane, they're talking about they want to give him his co-CEO position. See, yeah, you know what? Sounds about right. We're going to reward him for his bad behavior. He did corporate espionage. Yeah, we're going to give him his position back. And Jack didn't want to readily hand it to him. And Diana's like, Jack, we've gone through enough. He goes, no. He goes, our son hasn't said the right things for me to feel like he should have this position. And so Kyle finally, at Thanksgiving, talked to Diane. Well, that was last week, talked to Diane. But he then, this past week, said, I do realize I had a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, and I hadn't fully dealt with, the abandonment issue. And I definitely caused a huge part in the rift. And I was trying to sabotage you, you know. Subconsciously I didn't set out to, but yeah, it ended up that way in the resentment because I did a good job when I was co-CEO. So, needless to say, Diane truly trying to uh get back in his good graces, definitely, accepts that and she apologizes again and again and blah blah blah. Now, Jack, after Kyle leaves, Jack is talking to Diane and he has something to tell her. He goes, you know what? I got to tell you something. And she's like, what? He goes, about Glasaka. She found out It was because she came home mad. Jack, you're not going to believe this. The attorneys got back to me and they told me that Victor, he goes, oh, sold you a shell of a company? She looked at him. She goes, how did you know? Because that's a Victor move. Classic Victor move. I knew he would do that. She goes, so then I've got nothing. And Jack says, no. Mm-mm. You see, Victor sold off all the divisions in a fire sale for pennies on the dollar. Now, what I want to know is which division had Jabot's new product. Remember that Kyle stole that they were going to put in production, right? Um, but Jack said, "Oh, I had someone secretly buying up all of those fire sale divisions for pennies on the dollar. And now Glissade is whole again." And she looked at him. She said, you did what? He says, yeah, I finally got to pull one over on the mustache. He was so busy being distracted with giving Nikki Chancellor, with everything going on, he didn't notice the sold off companies were all being bought by one entity, even though it wasn't under Jack's name, right? Because he didn't care. It's like Victor said, I don't care about Glissade, not one bit at all. Glissade is nothing compared to Chancellor, is what he told Nikki. Nothing. And I don't even think about that company. So he goes, and you know what? I want, first Jack said, let's give it to Kyle. And then Diane says, no, that's a consolation prize because Kyle really wanted to be co CEO. Let's give him his job back, Jack. Give him his position back. And then he goes, well, you know what? Then you will run Glissade. And she looked at him and she's thinking about it. Well, as the week progressed, Jack ends up doing what I knew they were going to do. Fold Glissade into Jabot, give it its own entity, just like Marchetti is folded into Jabot, but it's still Marchetti. Jack even picked out the name. Now, mind you, Diane gonna make all the decisions, but he didn't let her name her company. He picked the product line, but she's making all the decisions. He says it'll be called Jabot Classics. This company can carry all of our classic and timeless products. And I'm thinking, well, doggone it, doesn't regular Jabot carry that? Right? What's good about that? Regular Jabot still does that, but I guess he's saying you could feature the products that we no longer um are featuring. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, she loves the idea. They're gonna do a press release, but Jack says, but first I want to see the look on Victor's face when he finds out that we double crossed him or I double crossed him. And she goes, now that's gonna be sweet. Now Victor runs into Kyle and Claire, who, by the way, hit the sheets last week. And boring. I mean, is it just me? Are those two together boring? Because Kyle was always a jerk face bore, and Claire is just a boring bore. Summer at least had no, when Summer was with Kyle, she pretty much did whatever he wanted to. But Summer at least had some spunk because of being Phyllis's daughter. Claire is just boring. Very, very boring. And Summer's looking at them all kinds of crazy, jealous because she broke up with Chance, right? And now she's looking and seeing how close Kyle and Claire are and just eyeing them, right? And making sure she spending extra mommy time with Harrison, right? So anyway, um, Claire kind of mentioned it to Kyle when they ran into each other, when Summer ran into them at, they were at Society having dinner. And Summer came over to him and said, I just have to ask. Because they invited her to join them. She goes, No, I'm picking up takeout. I've got to go. But she came back after she got her dinner. I just have to ask, what's with you two? And Kyle looks at her and says, What do you mean, what's with you two? Us two. We're friends. We're good friends. And she says, Oh, okay, friends. And he says, Yeah, enjoy Claire's company. And then he kind of changes the subject. Anyway, Summer, blah, 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 blah. In other words, like, I'm not going to get into my relationship with you. But he was very, very smooth, very Kyle about it. He wasn't jerk face about it. He just kind of answered her question and then boom, on to the next subject because we're not going to dwell. So she goes, Well, I'm happy for your friendship, right? And she leaves. And Claire says, Is it just me? Something weird with that. He goes, No, it wasn't just you. So anyway, but that's not letting them skip a beat. So Nikki has a pep talk with her because Claire has to tell Kyle and Summer that she's going to accept the job with Nikki. And she, oh goodness, yeah, and goodness, tired. And so she says, but I'm gonna miss formerly being Harrison's nanny. And then she was talking to Nikki about, yeah, she and Kyle have gotten closer, and she hopes he's happy for her that he's accepting the job. She's trying not to leave them in the lurch. But Harrison's in school all day, right? He doesn't really need a nanny. Yeah, he needs a babysitter. He does need a nanny for after school with Kyle working back full CEO hours. So just the after school care, and that shouldn't be Mrs. Martinez. She's the housekeeper and the cook, and the sometime babysitter watching movies with Harrison. Come on now. So anyway, Nikki says, Look, if he's as good as you say he is, he's going to be happy for you pursuing your career. Because Claire went to graduate school for this, she went to college for business. He goes, He would be happy for you, Claire. And so she's like, I hope so. So she calls him and wants to meet. And he and Summer had just had breakfast together at Society. And she just extra happy, laughing it up with Kyle. Oh, it's so great, because Harrison had a science project that was due and he wanted Summer to see it. So she rushed right over. He made some kind of ant farm and blah, blah, blah. And they're laughing. He goes, Yeah, you don't want to know how he caught. No, she says, How did he catch all those ants? And he goes, You don't want to know. And she laughs. She goes, Oh no. He goes, Yeah, but suffice to say, Mrs. Martinez had to clean out the entire pantry. So anyway, they're laughing. And Summer's like, Well, you know what? It's good that we can get together, and just enjoy our son and have, good times. And he goes, Yeah, it is nice, Summer. And I said, Look at Summer. She's trying to inch her way back in subtly, right? So she goes, Well, you know what? I've got to go. No, Victor walks up. It just interrupts. And she goes, Grandpa. And Kyle had already told Summer about what Victor had done because Summer was bashing Diane like she always does. And he goes, Summer, um, I haven't forgiven her all the way, but we're working on rebuilding our family. She goes, Well, as far as I'm concerned, you don't need to forgive. She was bashing Diane, but she eased up after she could see Kyle really wasn't wanting to hear that, right? So Victor walks over. Oh, my baby, my sweetheart. Do you mind if I speak to Kyle here for a minute? And she looks at him. Victor, Summer does. She looks up at him. She goes, Sure, Grandpa, I got to get to work anyway. So she leaves, he sits down and starts with the mind games with Kyle. And back at Jabot, consolation prize. Your mama handed you the keys to the C-suite. Well, she gonna take them back whenever. Victor was ridiculous. And Kyle says, yeah, you tried. You used me. You didn't care a thing about me. He goes, so, what you got to say here, Victor, means nothing to me. And Victor says, you need mentoring. Your parents can't do that. They're just bashing, of course, Jack and Diane. And Kyle says, well, you know what? I definitely don't need your kind of mentoring. Definitely. Because, you proved yourself and what your intentions were where I was concerned. And Victor says, you think you know so much. I play the long game, my boy, the long game. And Kyle said, well, you could play it without me. And he gets up and he leaves. So Diane walks in as Kyle is leaving and she goes, hey, Kyle. And no, no. Does Victor say have a nice day? I think he says, you know how he loves to dismiss people? He looked at Kyle, have a nice day. You're going to find out. And he gets up and he walks over to the bar, and Diane is walking in. And Diane says, hey, Kyle. And he goes, hey, Mom. Well, look, do we have a chance to talk? Victor walked over to another table. And he goes, well, look, I've got to go because Claire called him. I've got to meet Claire before I go to work. She goes, really? Is everything okay? He goes, I hope so. But I promise later today we'll catch up and we'll talk. She goes, okay. So he leaves and she turns around and there's Victor just looking at her. And it kind of, the way he's looking at her catches her by surprise, right? And so she's like, mm. And he says, you think your family isn't. Then he starts in on Diane with the mind games. And I'm like, this grown man is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, right? So, needless to say, Jack calls Nikki, knowing she would invite him over, and she did. And he's just once again talking about how he's just walking back in time with the house and everything. And they talk and talk, and he makes sure he stays a little while there. So, Victor comes home. What are you doing in my house? And Nikki says, he goes, Nikki invited me. She goes, Victor, Jack called and I invited him over. Well, kindly invite him out. Invite him to leave. So Nikki looks at him and Jack says, that's okay, Nikki. Time for me to leave anyway. And he goes, oh, as he's walking by Victor, Victor, you know what? By the way, I should thank you. And he goes, for what? He goes, oh, for glissade. And Victor kind of chuckles. You got a shell of a company. It's nothing. It's nothing. And so Jack walked by. He goes, yeah, you did a fire sale on all the divisions gutting the company. But what you weren't paying attention and didn't even notice, someone bought them all up for pennies on the dollar. Thank you very much, Victor. And Jack is smugly smiling as he's walking by, and Victor kind of he's looking straight ahead. Nikki can see Victor's face. He's looking like, wait, what? Hmm, what happened? you know, like, okay, that one got behind, from under me. But anyway, last but not least, Christine is leaving. Nick is whining to everybody, help. I got help Sharon. We got to prove this just isn't her, blah, blah, blah. Um, little, what's her name? Lucy. Boy, she laid into Faith. Because Faith is like, I'm sorry, what happened to your mother. But, my mother, this isn't my mother. I know my mother. And Lucy says, oh, no, 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 this is your mother. And your mother confessed. Lucy, she confessed. So she goes, I know she did, but this still isn't her. I mean, I've known my mother all my, she goes, yeah, your mother was sweet and nice to you, right? You guys watch movies together as she's sneaking into my house, planting murder evidence on my father. That's your mother, Faith. That's your mother. And she just laid into to Faith. So much so that Faith finally said, "You know what? I'm sorry, Lucy. I'm sorry, but I can't listen to you talk about my mother that way." And she gets up and she walks off. Sharon is telling Michael she wants him to change her plea to guilty so she could just get this over with. And Nick is telling her, no, no, no. He met with Chance and they're going to have the medication bottle analyzed, the pills. She goes, "You took one of my old prescription bottles out of the trash, you know, because, they were changing her medications. Whenever the doctor would change them, she would throw the other dose away." And he goes, "Yeah, Sharon, and I'm having it analyzed." And Michael was like, "Ooh, who'd you give it to?" And he says, "I gave it to Chance, and Chance is going to let me know, what the bottles, what the analysis comes up with." Well, Michael ends up coming to Nick saying Chance is not going to let you know. The district attorney is going to let me know any pertinent information regarding those pills. He says, "See, Nick, we got to be very careful," which is true. "You and Sharon have a long history. Even now, you have a history. How would it look for one, you gave Chance this bottle. We don't know if you tampered with what's inside that bottle, but you gave it to Chance to analyze. Okay, so the GCPD analyzes it. How would it look for Chance to now give you the information and not put it before he puts it through any proper channels?" No, Nick, no. Because if the evidence does come back showing that this is not the right medication for Sharon, everything needs to be in the right pecking order so I can use it for her defense. And Nick finally understood that. He got it. He goes, "Okay, I understand." He goes, "So the DA, because I am the attorney and I have a right to know that information, will let me know." So we'll see what happens with that next week. When because it's supposed to come out today, but that's next week, right? Um, I'm sorry. Who is that lady in the top left? Doesn't it look like Jordan to you? I don't care that she has a blonde wig on and a tan. Still looks like her. She running off. Ian convinced her to go and spy on Sharon's kids to see if they're looking distraught, right? Come to find out, okay, Kyle and Claire are going into society and they bump into Jordan. Well, not bump into her. Jordan's trying to sneak on out of there. And Claire's like, "You know what? Excuse me." And Jordan stops. She kind of tries to keep her head down, not really look at Claire. Claire says, "Do I know you from somewhere?" And Jordan puts on some stupid accent, like, "No." And she walks away. But even the way she holds her mouth, Jordan does a weird thing with her mouth. I mean, it's watch it, rewatch it, crazy. And some Claire is kind of like, hmm. And Kyle says, "What?" She goes, "I seem like that. There's something familiar about that woman, and I can't put my finger on it." But they're so in bliss. After bliss, they go into society, and she gives it another thought, pretty much, right? But we'll see with that situation. And I think that's it. That is it. That's caught up for the whole week. Let's go to comment corner. Comment corner. We've got, I think, 4 comments real quick. Denzel, I'm gonna kind of scale yours down. Denzel says he doesn't blame Billy for being mad. Jill didn't give him time to succeed before it's time for him to be successful. And she or not including the whole snitch Lily drama issue too. But Jill did the right thing. So you kind of switching up your point, right, Denzel? Jill did the right thing. There was no point of Jill calling Billy in the first place. Oh, when she called him, I know she called him just to rub salt in that wound, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm on Billy's side on this one. When he warned Claire about the Newmans, to only trust her mother, Victoria. But other than that, Billy will go back, get back on his feet, and Jack will bring him back to Jabot. That's how I see it. I think he'll make him COO. But you know what? Billy can't work under Kyle. So I don't know what's going to happen. He and Kyle clash too much, and Kyle secretly is jealous of Billy. Truly. And then look, when Phyllis saw Billy and Sally together, oh, she sits down and warns, oh, that woman in black, same old thing. Hatery on Sally. And then Denzel also says, let's see, Adam should get over Sally and Billy. Yeah, because Adam got into it, with Billy and telling him blah blah blah. And Billy's trying to be Billy, bolstering up against Adam. Same old thing. Sally walks in on to them both on Crimson, and I mean at the coffee house, yeah, Crimson Lights, and yeah, just the same old hashed, same old stuff. And then Denzel says, only, they put Adam back only to break him up, Adam and Sally back to break him up again. The Young and the Restless needs to be canceled. Both The Young and the Restless and The Bold and the Beautiful. Oh my goodness, you're 100% right about The Bold and the Beautiful. I'm surprised that is still on. And then I guess you brought up again Beyond the Gates. It's actually Beyond the Gates, Gates. I looked it up. The new soap opera that's coming next spring. After I guess The View, I think, is going off, and wrapping up their show. And then I think that's when this new soap is going to come out. And then Denzel talks about how Summer was looking annoying, of course, when she saw Claire and Kyle and Harrison all together. She's jealous. Yes, she is. But she has to understand she's the cause of why she and Kyle actually got divorced. Um, he did sleep with Audra, which was wrong, but Summer was no saint, keeping the secret uh, for Phyllis, which is true. Um, I'm ready. I'm already liking Kyle and Claire together. Oh, you are? They're boring to me. In my opinion, it definitely wasn't Nicholas's business when he was talking to Chelsea, or I mean about her and Adam. I know. See, Nick can get all in everybody else's business. That was at Thanksgiving. Um, and then at the house, both Adam and Nick was being hypocrites to each other. Nick always loves to shut Adam down, and now Adam is trying to get knee deep in Sharon's business, and Nick is, you'll know when we want you to know. This has nothing to do with you. But now Adam is going around looking for Sharon, going to Crimson, and Esther's like, she's not here. Okay, she's probably at work. you know, um, so he's gonna be drawn back into the Sharon orbit a bit because he has no relationship to focus on. So Adam is definitely going to do that. I already know. And then DL says, "Hi, Daily Recap lady. No, Sharon hooked up with Cameron in a motel years ago. He ended up raping her. Wow. Ian was a cult leader that Nikki was involved with. Uh, Paul in the 70s. He killed Heather, I think, to get revenge on Paul behind being Dylan's father. I forgot all about that, and you probably are right. Maybe it does have something to do with Dylan, Paul and Dylan. So now Heather was Paul's daughter. That could be. Ian also was linked to Mariah when she first came to town. Yeah, because you know, she was involved with that cult too. So anyway, that's it for the week, everybody. I will be back next weekend for another daily recap for The Young and the Restless.